Hello, guys. I'm Irene. I'm going to tell you a story about my sister Bethany and our dad. I watched it all happen from the beginning. I tried to intervene, but it didn't help because my dad wouldn't listen. Like every good father, our dad does everything he can to provide us with the best of everything. Unfortunately, he's very unlucky when it comes to business. He's a waiter, and I know that he is really good at his job. But for some reason, he can never stay in the same restaurant for more than 1 year. Recently, he was working at an Italian restaurant, and he was on good terms with his boss. But when he saw that another waiter was being treated unfairly, he quit his job. On such days, he comes home with flowers. When my mom saw the flowers, she knew right away that he had quit. Next morning, as we were going off to school, Dad was looking for an online job. We all knew that he'd find a new job pretty quickly because he always did. Sometimes we get back from school and he would already be working at another restaurant. This time, we were faced with an unexpected offer. Dad was super excited when we got back from school. He sat us down. "Girls, it's time for us to work for ourselves. We're going to start a family business. I don't have to work for other people anymore. I have a great idea. But I'll need you to help me with it," he said. Then he looked at my sister. "Especially you, Bethany," he said, smiling. Dad's great idea was starting a YouTube channel for my sister. Apparently, he came across some news online. It was about child YouTubers who made the most money this year. He was shocked when he saw that they made millions of dollars. He was on YouTube all day, going through child YouTubers' channels and watching their videos. He got really excited when he saw that they were pretty simple videos, mostly of kids playing games. After telling us all this, he said, "My daughter is so much prettier than all the other kids I saw. We could be one of the channels on that list next year," he said. Apparently, he told it all to our mom during the day. She got into it too when she heard how much money they were making. Bethany can do it as long as it doesn't disrupt her schoolwork. Some videos feature moms as well. "I can help out if you want," she said to him. It looked like they had already made up their minds. Bethany couldn't really say anything. "Would I be able to do it, though?" she asked. But I knew she liked the idea. The mood at home was really good. "Videos with pools are very popular. We'll move to a new house with a large pool next year," he said and started dreaming. The next day was Saturday. Dad took us to the aquarium. Bethany knew the place well because we had been there before with our parents and also once on a school trip. Dad was shooting a video, so she pretended like it was her first time. She was running around, looking at all the fish and acting really excited. Dad was in such a good mood. He recorded everything Bethany did in the aquarium. When we got home, Dad wanted to edit the videos right away. But he had no idea how to do it. He borrowed my laptop. He spent the whole evening trying to figure out a video editing program. He was asking me questions, but I couldn't help him, since I also didn't know anything about it. The funniest part was seeing my dad still working on it the next morning when we woke up. When he finally finished it, he proudly showed it to us. Honestly, it was a regular family video. At the same time, it was just like the other kids' videos on YouTube, which had millions of views. Dad's video was as ordinary as those videos. He made a YouTube channel under my sister's name and uploaded the video. He was so excited, as if the whole country had been waiting to see it. He bet my mom on the number of views it would get. Dad said it would get 5,000 or 6,000, but Mom thought it wouldn't get more than 1,000. The whole day he couldn't sit still and was pacing around. I checked the video in the evening. It only had 14 views. Yes, 14. I'm pretty sure it was just my dad watching it over and over. And maybe Bethany watched it 3 or 4 times. Next week, they made a new video every day. Dad was adding more videos to the thousands that were already on YouTube. One day, my sister and Mom played a game together. Then they did a colors video using fruits and vegetables. In another video, Bethany unpacked new toys and introduced them. Dad got over the disappointment of the first video. He would shoot a new video, edit it in the evening, and upload it the next morning. But despite his efforts, the results were the same. Nobody was watching the videos. One day, Dad came home with a bunch of boxes. He had bought professional video equipment. My parents didn't have any money saved, so he had to sell his car to buy them. Mom wasn't happy about this at all. Our family had no money coming in now that Dad was out of work. Spending all this extra money wasn't right. For the next month, he used the new camera and lights for the videos. Even though the visual quality was better, the content was the same. The most watched video in the channel didn't even have 100 views. The worst part was that Bethany was bored now. When Dad called her over to shoot, she'd make up excuses. She didn't look happy in the videos. Dad was in much worse shape than her. He felt responsible for the failure. He didn't have a job, but had expenses to pay. When Bethany didn't really feel like performing, he'd lose his patience with her. We no longer recognized him. He would scream at Bethany, forcing her to act for the camera. There was no peace at home. My parents started fighting a lot. Bethany got too scared to complain, but she looked like a robot in front of the camera. When I watched the videos, I felt really bad for her. It was weird that my dad actually liked the videos. According to him, the problem was the lack of promotion. So he invested the rest of his money on promoting the channel. Views increased a little, but when the ads stopped, they went back down to what they used to be. His final move was to put himself in front of the camera. He thought he had come up with an amazing idea. He put on a caveman costume. Bethany chased after him with a bunch of toy dinosaurs. Since my dad was a caveman, he was running scared from the dinosaurs. He waited a while after uploading this ridiculous video to the channel. The views weren't going up, so he borrowed money from a friend to promote the channel again. I couldn't watch that dinosaur video for more than a few minutes. It hurt to see my dad like that. He looked so desperate. The next day, Bethany came up to me at school crying. One of her classmates had seen the dinosaur video, thanks to the promotion, and showed it to everyone. They started mocking Dad and making fun of Bethany. She got angry and pushed a girl so hard that she fell. The teacher got really angry with her. "If you do that again, I'll send you to the principal," she said. When she told my mom about it, she got angry too. She and Dad had one of the worst fights I'd seen. Mom was screaming, "This YouTube thing is over. There will be no more video shoots in this house," she kept saying. "I need to get a return on my investment. Will all this money and effort go to waste?" he kept asking. Once he realized that Mom wasn't backing down, and she was right, he stopped yelling. After a while, he started apologizing. Dad wasn't a bad person. He had done the best he could, but things just didn't work out. He lost control when he couldn't find a way out. He came and talked to us once more. "Girls, I'm so ashamed of myself. I couldn't see what I had been doing. Bethany, I'm especially sorry for how I treated you. I understand if you can't forgive me," he said. He was about to cry. He left the house before we could say anything and didn't come back that night. He messaged Mom in the morning. She was really sad when she showed us the message. "Sweetie, I'm okay. I decided I'm not coming home until I find a good job. Don't worry about me. I love you all very much. I'm sorry for everything," said the message. Dad wasn't around the next day or the day after that. He was texting though. "Honey, I'm still looking for a job. I can't come home without a good job after all this. Kiss the girls and tell them I love them." The doorbell rang early the next morning. It was Dad. We were so happy. He turned to my sister. "Thank you for the video. None of this is your fault. I was the one forcing you. If anyone's guilty, it's me," he said, hugging her. He added, "I wish you turned the lights on, though. Your pretty face would have looked better." Mom and I were confused. Turns out, Bethany shot a video when we were sleeping. In it, she said that she loved Dad a lot, and all of this was her fault, asking him to come back home. Then she uploaded it to the channel. Dad's phone got a notification that said, "A new video has been uploaded to Bethany's channel." Surprised, he clicked on it right away. He got really emotional, but had to wait until the morning since it was already late. Dad found a new job a few weeks later. He says that his experience with YouTube and his video skills helped him land the job. The employer asked him why Dad stopped working. That's when he told him about the YouTube adventure. The employer had been wanting to make a YouTube channel featuring him cooking his mom's recipes. They decided to work on the shoots together. He's going to pay Dad extra for them. Dad wasn't looking forward to it since he was going to be reminded of our miserable days, but he was happy that he was going to make back his money.
Hi, guys. My name is Adam. I'm 14 years old. My parents are doctors. My sister is 3 years older than me. We're a happy family. We have lots of fun together. We always look on the bright side of every situation. Unfortunately, something very upsetting happened recently. It made me realize that you can grow up and mature in a matter of days. My uncle and his family live in another city. They visit us once or twice a year, always bringing us gifts when they come. During their last visit, they brought us a box of chocolates that they had bought in Belgium. We finally understood why Belgian chocolate is so famous. They were all so delicious, so we ate a little too much. My mom had to take the box away from us. If they're that good, don't finish them all in one sitting. You can only have one per day, and I'll give them to you, she said. We weren't happy, but she was the boss, and we knew that she wasn't going to back down. The next day, when my parents were at work, we remembered the chocolates. Not that we ever stopped thinking about them. Where could my mom have hidden them? If we managed to find them, she'd be angry, but we also knew that it wouldn't be long before she forgave us. So, we started looking for the chocolates, but we couldn't find the box anywhere. It looked like my mom was really serious about hiding it. We started looking in the least likely spots. When we were searching through my dad's desk, we found a key that looked really old. There was a wooden box in his room. My dad had worked at a hospital in Afghanistan at some point. We knew that my parents were often writing to each other then. All the letters were inside that box. Could my mom have hidden the chocolates there? We opened the box with the key. And bingo! We were so happy and started eating right away. Meanwhile, my sister started jokingly reading a letter that my dad had written. My beloved, the days are short, but the months don't seem to end. I have missed you so much. So I started going through the box to find a letter from my mom to read as a response. I came across a folder. I showed it to my sister and read what it said on it. Child Protection Services, Adoption Department. We looked at each other in confusion. Would we be crossing the line if we opened the folder? But we couldn't stop. My mom came in just as we were about to open the folder. But she didn't say anything. She just gulped. In a very calm voice, "Go to your rooms, both of you," she said. We didn't look inside. I know what we did was wrong, but aren't you going to tell us what's going on? My sister asked. My mom didn't even look and just showed us the door. I said, "Go to your rooms." We left without saying another word. We had kind of figured it out. When I went to my room, I immediately Googled Child Protection Services Adoption Department. Just as I thought, these documents were about adoption. I texted my sister the link. She replied with another link about the same subject. She was also trying to find answers online. My dad came home soon after. We didn't know what was going on, but the house was very tense. We were waiting anxiously in our rooms. I heard my mom call my sister. Then I heard the front door close. Where could they have gone? I was so curious. Just then my dad came in. He said my mom and sister went out for a walk. He was being really quiet as if he didn't know where to begin. A few times he cleared his throat, but still didn't manage to say anything. Finally, he took a deep breath. "Adam, I want this to stay between us, at least for a while," he said. I was getting more and more nervous. I didn't want to hear the rest. Why couldn't they have told me I was adopted? Didn't they think that it would come out eventually? Tears started falling from my eyes. I wasn't crying. I just couldn't stop the tears from falling. My dad looked at me. "Adam, it's time you learned the truth, but promise me that you won't tell your sister that she is adopted. This is really important. Deal?" he said. Wait a minute. It's my sister who was adopted? I looked at him in shock. I should have been happy because I'd felt so sad when I thought that it was me, but it was my sister who was adopted. That idea was so painful. This meant that my sister wasn't my real sister, right? She would be so sad if she found out that I wasn't her real brother. Of course, I couldn't tell her this. Even if my dad told me to tell her, I would keep this a secret forever. I couldn't bear making her sad. The next few days were very difficult. It was as if my sister and I had made a pact not to mention that day again. But I could see that the love between us was even stronger now. She was coming to my room a lot, making all these weird faces to make me laugh. I knew that whether or not she was my biological sister, she was my real sister. In fact, I started to love her even more after finding out that she was adopted. People naturally love their siblings, but loving someone you're not related to is so much more meaningful. Don't you agree? Pretty soon, we were as happy as we used to be. I had already forgotten about what had happened. In fact, I was planning on saying to my dad, "Let's tell my sister everything. It really doesn't matter that she's adopted. I love her more than a biological sister." Just around that time, my dad came into my room. "We think that your sister should learn the truth. However, we have a favor to ask you. We'll talk to her, but first we wondered if you'd like to write her a letter, telling her how you feel." Normally, this would be something I would refuse, but I was happy to do it. Yet, I realized that writing such a letter was a lot more difficult than I expected. Yes, from my perspective, nothing had changed, but what was my sister going to think when she found out that she was adopted? How could I explain this without hurting her? I thought about it for days. I'd start and erase it over and over. I didn't even have the first sentence. Then I had an idea. If she was adopted, for how long had she been my sister? I mean, was she here when I was born? Or did she come after me? I tried to remember our oldest memory to figure this out. There were so many memories from the time when I was a toddler, but which one was the oldest? I decided that the one that I barely remembered must have been the oldest. In this memory, we're somewhere where there are a lot of kids. We are running towards something. I don't know where this was. Like I said, I barely remember it. I trip on something and fall. Only one of the kids stops. The one who stops is, of course, my sister. She helps me up, checks if my knees are scraped, and then picks me up. Then we start running towards the other kids. I started my letter with this memory. "You've been my sister all this time, and you'll always be my sister," I continued. "Not having the same mother does not weaken our bond, but only makes it stronger." I started crying, telling her how much I loved her, how I'll always love her, and that nothing will change that. Every word I wrote was true. I just wrote whatever I was feeling. Finally, the big day arrived. My dad texted me during the day asking, "Is your letter ready?" When I said that it was, "You can give it to her tonight," he said. It wasn't tense at home anymore. It was like we were all finally relaxed and in a really good mood. When my dad signaled me with his eyes, I knew it was time. "Let's meet in my office," he said. My sister was there when I entered. The wooden box that started it all was on the desk. My parents were smiling. I had put the letter in an envelope. I gave it to my sister. She was shocked. She gave me a piece of paper too. When I opened it, I saw that it was a letter that started with, "My dear Adam." I was so confused. Why did she write me a letter? We went to opposite corners of the room to read. I couldn't believe my eyes. My sister was saying that I was adopted. Just like me, she had written about how much she loved me and that whether or not I was her biological brother made no difference to her. After reading, we first looked at each other and then to our parents. My dad took out the adoption papers from the box and told us to come closer. He showed us the folder. Yes, we were both adopted. It wasn't just my sister. I was adopted too. My sister and I looked at each other. We couldn't help it and started laughing. There was no distinction between us. We were in the same boat. We shared the same fate. We hugged each other. Then my parents joined in. The four of us hugged for a while. Then we went to dinner. My parents apologized for keeping this a secret. They said they were going to tell us when the time was right, but that the chocolates had accelerated the process. When the whole thing began, my mom called a psychiatrist that she works with. She said this wasn't her specialty and asked the child psychologist to help out. That's how this idea of letters came up. My parents thought it was a good plan, so they took action. Well, You know the rest. We learned something else that day, too. My parents had intended to only adopt my sister. They didn't know about me. But my sister didn't want to leave me behind. She threw herself on the floor, crying, "He is my brother. I won't leave Adam here," she kept saying.
Hi friends, I'm Julie. I accidentally discovered my family's biggest secret. It's such a huge revelation that our lives will never be the same again. It all started when my older sister Jenny moved in with us after leaving her husband. I had no idea at the time that our marriage had been a mess for a while. When she found out that her husband Chris had cheated on her, it was the final straw. One morning while he was sleeping, she took her sons and left him. My sister is a housewife. She's never had a job in her life. She took her kids and moved in with us because she had nowhere else to go. At first, she told us it would be temporary, but after a year and a half, she is still living with us. I think she thought she'd get back together with her husband, but they just kept fighting for months. They weren't able to reconcile. All that fighting not only caused their marriage to end, but it also messed up our family because I saw a text message from my sister's husband when they were arguing. I was curious about what he meant with that message. When I looked into it, I found out about my sister's incredible secret. Let's rewind and go back to that evening. Now I see that by then, my sister was starting to lose any hope she had of keeping her marriage going, and this had made her very hostile. She wasn't speaking to my mom or me. She wasn't taking care of her kids. She wasn't eating. She wasn't sleeping. All she did was fight with her husband on the phone or through text messages. Yes, their marriage was in terrible shape. Chris was cheating on her. He didn't want to get back together, but my sister was still madly in love with him. She couldn't imagine her life without him. One night, I was putting her kids to sleep. The younger one asked, "How many days can a person go without food?" I knew why he was asking that. He heard my mom telling me, "Your sister didn't eat again today." Naturally, he was concerned about his mother. I gently rubbed his head. "Nothing's going to happen to your mom, because I'm going to go and make her an amazing sandwich. No way will she be able to resist it. She'll eat the whole thing," I told him. That put him at ease. "I want that same amazing sandwich in the morning too," he said as he closed his eyes. So right after he fell asleep, I went to the kitchen and made the best sandwich I could for my sister. I even added a birthday candle on it to make it cuter. I knocked on my sister's door. When she didn't answer, I cracked the door open and looked in. She had fallen asleep. I went into the room to put a blanket over her. I left the sandwich next to her bed. She was clutching her phone. Maybe she had dozed off in the middle of an argument, exhausted from lack of sleep. I smiled. She seemed so cute to me at that moment. I was still a baby when my sister left home. We never had a close relationship. Actually, that was quite normal because we didn't really spend that much time together. She didn't know me at all. That said, I can't really say her relationship with Mom is all that great either. She used to visit us at most once a year and called us every month or so. After Dad passed away, she started calling Mom more frequently. I think she was trying to be supportive, but our relationship didn't change much. She only held me and cried long and hard at Dad's funeral. I was thinking about all this as I was watching my sister sleep. I took the phone from her hand. I put it on her nightstand. Just as I did that, the phone screen lit up. She got a new message. Without meaning to, I read it. The message was from her husband. "Enough! I never told you to leave your daughter for me," he had written. While I was still processing this, another text from Chris came in. "Don't give me that guilt trip again. You didn't want your daughter. You made me your excuse. We both know that." I was so shocked and upset when I figured out what Chris was saying. Apparently, besides her 2 sons, my sister also had a daughter and she had given her up for adoption. Since she was blaming her husband for this, she must have abandoned her daughter to marry Chris. I accidentally learned something incredible. I switched off the light. I ran out of the room. I was still in shock when I lay in my bed. I thought my mom definitely knew about this, but she never told me. Normally, she loves talking about my sister, and she usually criticizes her. For example, she used to say, "Your sister's marriage wasn't going well since day one, but she still had those 2 babies. So why did she never say she had another child? Maybe my father didn't know, and she hid it from me because she was scared he would find out." This accidental discovery changed my whole perspective on my sister. How could a person do this to her own child? How could she abandon her for such a selfish reason? How old was her daughter right now? What was her adoptive family like? Did she know who her mother, my sister was? Could I find my niece? As her aunt, could I give her the warmth that her mother denied her? Now I was thinking about these nonstop. I wanted to find this poor child whose existence I had just found out about and give her back the life that her mother had taken away. But to be able to do that, I needed more information. I decided to talk to my mom and get answers to my questions. I was going to find my niece no matter what. Since my sister and her kids were always around, I had to wait for some time to talk to my mom. After a while, I got the chance I was waiting for. My sister wasn't able to look her sons in the eye. The poor kids were still trying to find out what was going on. They had moved into their grandmother's house. Their father wasn't around. Their mother was on the phone, screaming all the time. My older nephew Noah was about to start high school, but he didn't even know what city he was going to be in. He was already a shy kid. Now he had become even more withdrawn. I hadn't heard a word from him in days. My mom was naturally sad for the boys. There was a water park in our city. When I was younger, we used to go there every month. My mom thought of taking the kids there. I was supposed to go along to help her out. The following day, we were at the water park with the kids. Noah went for a swim in the pool. The younger one was playing on the slides. Mom and I sat at a cafe from where we could see the slides. I was looking forward to talking to her, but I didn't know how to start this conversation. Finally, I blurted out, "Mom, does my sister have a daughter?" My mom was stunned. She stared at me. "What are you talking about?" she said. I told her about the texts I read on my sister's phone. She was visibly stumped. She said things like, "Don't be silly, there's no such thing, you must have misunderstood." But she was so panicked that I could tell she already knew about this, but kept it from me. When I confronted her, she got angry. "You're a big girl now, you're heading off to college soon. Instead of thinking about things like this, do something for your future," she said. She began rambling on so that I wouldn't ask any more questions. When I figured out she wouldn't talk, I had to back down. What was I going to do now? My mother was obviously lying to me. I wanted to find my niece no matter what. Since I couldn't ask my sister, there was only one person left, her husband, Chris. Yes, I was going to ask him. I wasn't sure if he would help me out, but I had no choice. I had to give it a try. I didn't have Chris's phone number, but I knew the name of the car dealership where he worked. I Googled it and found it right away. I called the number. They called Chris to the phone. My voice was shaking. I said, "I'm Julie," and he was really surprised. I told him what happened. "I want to find my niece," I said. Chris said, "Forget about this for your own good." When I said, "What does it have to do with me?" "Go ask your sister. I can't say anything more," he said curtly. I didn't have any other choice. I was going to ask my sister. I went to her room. She was crying. I thought she and her husband had another fight, but this time it was something else. "Mom just told me," she said, averting her eyes. Then I understood Mom had told her that I knew about her daughter. I sat next to her. "I didn't want to upset you. I just want to find my niece and tell her that she has a family," I said, resting my head on her shoulder. My sister started stroking my hair. "You only have 2 nephews. You don't have a niece," she said. I picked my head up from her shoulder. I looked at her. "What do you mean? But you also have a daughter," I said. "Yes, I also have a daughter," she said, averting her eyes again. In that moment, the world started to spin. My ears were ringing with those sentences. "You don't have a niece, but you also have a daughter." "Yes, I also have a daughter." I stared at her in disbelief. I was speechless for a minute. Then I said, "So I'm your daughter?" My sister nodded. "Yes, Julie. You're my daughter." I couldn't breathe. I didn't know what to say. My sister, who I had just found out seconds ago that was in fact my mother, started telling me the whole story. "It was my freshman year in college. I made the biggest mistake of my life. I got pregnant by someone I didn't really know well. All I knew was his name, or at least I think I did. I still had the baby, and that was you. I was going to school. Your grandmother was taking care of you. Then I met Chris. I fell in love with him. Chris wasn't someone who would marry a young woman with a baby because he was an adventurer at heart. He wanted to travel the world and eventually settle down in a place that he liked. I left you with your grandmother and left with him. We traveled for 3.5 years. We got married along the way, but we came back because we couldn't make it work anywhere else. When I got back, I saw that you were calling your grandmother Mom. While I was gone, your grandmother had become your mother. I was really sad, but I knew I deserved it. Your grandmother made me swear, "You will never tell anyone that Julie is your daughter," she said. No one else other than Dad and Chris knew. And now you know. Everything came out in the open that day. I was the biggest secret in my own family. The person I knew as my sister was my mother. The person I knew as my mother was my grandmother. So what happened after I found out about all this? You might think it's strange, but almost nothing's changed. Yes, my sister might be my biological mother, but she's not my real mother. A mother is someone who raises and cares for a child. My sister surely doesn't deserve to be my mother. I only have one mother, and she will stay as my mother forever. Thank you for listening to my story. If you like stories inspired by real life, you can subscribe to this channel. Bye!